should be able to pick us up. So I'm assuming we've all got audio in white. And good morning. Appreciate the turnout. What a day, huh? Beautiful day. And you'll understand why we're out here practically in the middle of nowhere in just a couple of moments. A couple of things that we want to unpack today. A reason why we got out of the headquarters down over on Trade Street today, because there's a number of important things that we want to talk about. Wanted to start today by bringing in Sergeant David Sloan. He's with our Major Crash Investigations Unit. A number of you had just a multitude of questions over the last week or so concerning a spike that we've seen in fatal pedestrian traffic collisions, and the numbers are just they're pretty revealing. You know, all of us, at least in our unit, and a lot of the people you see standing around here today, we've all got these, and most of us are on what we call incident notification systems, meaning that anytime something big, something significant happens in the city, chances are this thing's going to go off. And this thing has gone off quite a bit, a couple of dozen times just this year alone, concerning pedestrians that have been struck by vehicles that unfortunately had succumbed to their injuries as a result of that collision. I want to bring Sergeant Sloan up now to talk about what he and his detectives are seeing out there in the field, some trends, some common threads that they're seeing with some of these wrecks, some preventative information maybe that he can put down, and maybe put a bow on it by talking about tonight, it being Halloween, knowing that there's going to be a lot of people, a lot of extra people out in the community, especially out on the roads, a lot of young people as well. So don't want to belabor this. I do want to bring in Sergeant David Sloan, though.
Good morning. So as you all have been seeing, we've had a lot of fatal crashes out here in Charlotte this year. It's carried over from last year. These have been about the two highest years since 2000. This year we're at 69 fatal crashes we've investigated. We've had 24 pedestrians that have been struck and killed compared to 17 last year. We finished with 20 overall pedestrians being killed last year, so we're well above that number, and that's unacceptable. Basically, overall, what we're doing, what we're seeing out here is there's not one thing that's really sticking out that we can pinpoint other than the four main characters that or categories that we're focusing on. That's speed-related fatalities, they're up. DWI-related fatalities are up. Seatbelt fatalities are up, and of course the pedestrian fatalities are up. What we're doing as a unit and as a group, including my detectives and the DWI task force, we're going out and we're targeting the high schools. We teach at the driver's ed classes. It's a course called Teaching Our Teens, The Lesson in Survival. It's a totals class. We also have the DWI task force hitting all the other colleges and high schools, talking to students about driving while impaired. So basically, you know, overall, we're trying to look at each of these categories and focus on them individually. So we have LiDAR operations, which is the speed operations. We do them, you know, either weekly or bi-weekly throughout the month. We also do the nighttime and daytime seatbelt operations. Majority of our seatbelt fatalities, the individual's been out drinking at night and they don't buckle up, and that's resulting in their death. So we focus on those as well with these operations that we're doing, the undercover operations. Officers will stand out there in plain clothes and spot people not wearing the seatbelts. So we do that for the seatbelts. For the pedestrians that are being struck, we do the Watch For Me operations. It's a bicycle pedestrian operation. We partner with CDOT. It's a great tool that we utilize out there. We hit the colleges mainly. We also hit the areas where we've had a lot of pedestrians struck and killed. Now, these pedestrians are being struck all over the city, and this year we're seeing a lot more of the pedestrians being at fault, whereas last year it was almost equal with the motorists not yielding to the pedestrians. So what we do in these situations, we work with CDOT. CDOT works on these bus stops. Several of them are getting off bus stops, and instead of walking the 15 yards down the road to the intersection and using the crosswalks and using the electronic signals to cross, they decide to cross 4 or 6 lanes of travel. playing Frogger in between the lanes of cars coming at you. Extremely dangerous. So by educating the public with these operations that we're doing, we're trying to make sure that they understand that it's a lot safer to get down to the crosswalks and cross the road. Now, some places it's just not feasible because the lights are a mile apart, okay? That's where you still have to be safe when you're crossing the roadway. You need to make sure that traffic's yielding to you or you're yielding to the traffic coming. So the main thing you got to get, the point we want to get across to everybody is you need to make eye contact with the vehicle that's approaching you, and as a motorist, we ask that you make eye contact with the pedestrian. Before you step off the curb or as you're approaching an area where there's pedestrians, cover the brakes, slow down, make sure the pedestrian's looking at you so they don't dart out in front of you. If you're a pedestrian, if you see the car coming, don't expect they see you, because a lot of times, as you know, there's a lot of distractions in the vehicle and outside the vehicle that that driver might be looking at other than you getting ready to step off the curb into the crosswalk or into the roadway, wherever you might be. So we ask that you, before you do that, make sure that you step off a curb, make sure that you have a vehicle that sees you, make eye contact, make sure that vehicle's stopping. If it's at nighttime, make sure that vehicle comes to a stop that's allowing you to cross. As a driver, again, please just, if you're coming up to an intersection, scan that intersection. We had a wreck last night where somebody, came through a red light. You need to, scan these intersections as a driver, not only for the pedestrians, but don't just expect because you have a green light that it's safe to go through that intersection. We have people running stop signs and stoplights all the time. So we really need to focus on, have the drivers focus on the intersections and what they're doing and not on their phones, not on the radio or their GPS devices in the cars. So overall, though, we're working on it. We're trying to attack all these areas of concern, and again, hopefully we can have an impact on these fatalities and get them to decrease a little bit.
A couple of questions for Sergeant Sloan. Ice on the windshield the other night.
The individual on that crash apparently didn't clean off his window. It was iced over, frosted over. I believe it's an active investigation, but I know that when the detectives got out there, it was still 40 minutes later, it was still covered over. And he never saw the pedestrian. So
Are you cited for that?
You sure can. That's reckless driving. So, and in turn, when you're cited with reckless driving and there's a death involved, then it becomes a misdemeanor death investigation. So, and he was cited appropriately. Yes.
Are you able to talk about, I believe it was Saturday, a gentleman in a wheelchair was killed? Were any of those factors that you talked about?
Don't have all the information on that case. The detective that is working that case actually has 2 other cases. He got called in last night. I haven't had an opportunity to talk to him about that case specifically. I did not go to it. We are working. I did speak briefly to him. He does have some vehicle parts he's matching up, and he's got a description of a vehicle that we hope to get out today. And if not by tomorrow, he's trying to get the color and all that stuff down so we can get out that to the media. But it will be a vehicle with front headlight damage.
From what you see investigating all these crashes, would it help to add more crosswalks?
There's some locations that need more crosswalks, but CDOT, I tell you what, they do a heck of a job. They have all the data, they have all the research, but as the city's growing, there's more businesses and grocery stores coming up on one side of the road and apartments on the other side of the road, so it doesn't make it easy because apartments are dead center of a block, and instead of wanting to walk 50 yards that way or 50 yards this way, they all want to cross over to get to the businesses mid-block. So they have built the pedestrian refuges, in a lot of locations. That's where they can cross and stand in the middle and then go the next 2 lanes. And they also got the pedestrian beacons, the ones that light up and have those makeshift crosswalks. So they utilize those quite a bit, and they're putting more and more in as the city grows. And of course, they're doing the research and finding the locations where we have the most issues. I saw a stat actually today. Somebody sent me an email, and it was 20% 28% of all fatalities were DWI related across the nation. 27% of all fatalities were DWI related, and 9% were distracted driving. Okay, so I don't know if it's increasing or decreasing. It's an issue. I mean, anybody that is out here driving, you get behind a car and you see it drifting over a line or something, I can guarantee you pull up next to him and his face is right in that cell phone. It's extremely dangerous. It's costing lives as well. So, you know, that's part of the operations that we do with the seatbelt enforcement at nighttime and daytime. As we're spotting the seatbelt people going by us, we're calling in anybody that's on a phone texting, okay? So we can call in those violations as well. That's one way we enforce it. We do have a lot more unmarked vehicles that we're putting out on the road. The DWI Task Force is going to unmarked vehicles. So you will see them out there, a lot of unmarked vehicles that are stopping vehicles, and they can pull up next to people and see them texting all day long. However, as you know, people texting, I can be in a marked car, police car, and pull up next to them and they still won't even see me. So it's very dangerous. Right. So basically the Watch For Me program, we try to target, number one, where we have the most volume of pedestrians. That would be like the colleges up UNCC or CP downtown. Those locations where we know there's a high number of pedestrians crossing the roadways, whether it's be a fatality or actually people just injured in crashes. So we do that for one part of it, but also where we've had the fatalities like Albemarle Road and Farm Pond, there's a bus stop there, so we will do extra enforcement out in those locations where they get off the buses, and we will stop them before they cross the road and give the pedestrians warnings not to do that because it's, you know, go down to the intersection to be safe. So we're doing as much as we can out there. There's, you know, Charlotte's a big city, so we try to get more and more officers throughout the city and the divisions to pick out locations where they're having issues and let us know so we can go out and hit those areas as well with them.
We are going to let Sergeant Sloan start getting back to work. Before we do though, Sarge, tonight being Halloween, anything that you can put out there on the end of anything preventative? Yep.
So tonight for Halloween, you know, there's plenty of kids out there. We ask all drivers just make sure you're aware that there's going to be kids all over the roadways, neighborhoods especially, so slow down. If your child's out, make sure they have a flashlight, something reflective on them. If they're going in a neighborhood, stay on one side of the street, hit all the sidewalks and hit the houses on that side. Don't cross back and forth the road between parked cars because vehicles can't see you coming. If you get to an intersection where you have to cross a road, stop. If there's a vehicle coming, make sure that vehicle comes to complete stop and allows you to cross. Don't expect they see you because I'm telling you right now, if you think that the vehicle sees you getting ready to cross the road, they don't, okay? It happens way too many times. So we just want them to be safe out here tonight, and the motorists have just as much responsibility as the pedestrians. We want everybody to understand that it works both ways. So we just want everybody to be safe.
We appreciate your time, Sarge.
You got it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, and I suspect Sarge will be hanging out for a little bit for anyone who has some unfinished business that they want to go ahead and address with Sergeant Sloan. Good information, good advice, good preventative advice, and hopefully it makes its way out to our community. I want to bring in Officer Brandon Miller. Some of you know Officer Brandon Miller. A couple of you know Officer Brandon Miller. He's been here with our department for 8 years? Correct. 8 years. Just wanted to take this opportunity this morning for a little housekeeping. Brandon Miller is going to be the new Crime Stoppers coordinator for the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Crime Stoppers program. You know, I don't think we've said it enough, how big proponents we are, the CMPD, for Crime Stoppers and the work that they do. Brandon is starting that new position in earnest immediately. I think the technical date's October 4th, but he's already, November 4th, pardon me, but he's already hit the ground running. Just want to give you a little bit of a background on Brandon. 8 years with the department, local guy. Grew up here, went to high school here, lives here, still lives here, knows the landscape, knows the people, knows the history, knows the culture, and what we're really hoping Brandon will have the ability to do is take some of those relationships and connections that he's made over in North Tryon and just really expand those relationships citywide, countywide, wherever it is that we patrol. Because look, Crime Stoppers couldn't be successful without relationships that we have with the community. So we think Brandon is going to do a bang-up job there in that regard. Wanted to get it out there. You're going to start seeing a lot of Brandon. Just wanted to let you know who he was, what he's done, and what we have planned for Brandon. And he, too, will stay behind today in the event anybody wants to speak with him and do a little breakout piece on Brandon Miller and Crime Stoppers. So appreciate it, and welcome aboard, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So as nice of a day as it is, you're probably wondering what the heck we're doing out here, and I suspect some of you know that we train our dogs from the Canine unit out here in this area. 13 dogs with the department, 13 patrol dogs, 1 bloodhound, 14 handlers, so 14 officers who handle these dogs, and the work that they do probably don't get nearly enough attention for the work that they do, but they've had more than 1,200 deployments just in the last year. October of last year, 2016, to October of this year, 2017, everything from building searches, explosive sweeps, perimeter security, cases that they've worked on, located more than 40 suspects, recovered more than 54 articles of evidence, located 3 missing people. I mean, these are busy people, busy teams, and probably didn't have the opportunity to know as much as you should about how everything works here with our Canine unit. And, you know, I had the opportunity to spend some time with them several months back, and it was really striking the kind of relationship, that bond that you find between the dogs and the handlers. I mean, some of these handlers, they'll be the first to attest to the fact they probably spend more time with these animals than they do with their own family members. I mean, these are just very tight bonded teams that work together, really rely on each other for, you know, this is life or death stuff, and it's not hyperbole, it's really life or death stuff. They really do depend on each other. So I know a number of you have gotten information that at least one of our Canine dogs is going to be retiring in the not too distant future, and that is Dano, like Bookham Dano, for those of us who've been around for a little while. It's a television show from back in the day. Joe Gillespie, I see that wasn't lost on you.
No, not at all.
Not a bit, right? So that is Officer Matt Yoder's dog, and I want to bring Matt up if I could. And Joe Hoskins, or J.D. Hoskins, he's another officer who's having one of his dogs that will soon be retiring, his dog Fellow. Just to bring them up and maybe flank Darryl Brown, Officer Brown. He's with Canine. He'll give you a 30,000 foot view of the work that these guys do, and maybe we could bring the 2 officers up to talk about their dogs and maybe some stories that they've shared through the years. Officer Brown.
This will give them these gentlemen a minute to get their dogs, and I'm sure everybody wants to see the dogs. As Mr. Tofano said, I'm Darryl Brown. I've been working dogs for the city for about 18 years now, and you know, I don't think we ever give these dogs the correct send-off. I'm on dog number 5, and to be honest, we just kind of take them home and they live with the family for the rest of their career, so on and so forth. But as Mr. Stefano said, is these dogs do the work that a lot of people don't want to do. They're tracking the violent offenders in the woods, the explosive sweeps, narcotics. They like to talk when they're on camera, apparently. But they do all the work that nobody else wants to do, and they don't ask anything. They just want some loving from us, a toy, some food, and they're good. But I think it's time we start recognizing these dogs for what they do for the community. As he said, there's a bunch of dogs out here. We're here 24/7 to do everything from, you know, tracking people down to searching buildings to the explosive sweeps for the events, the narcotics sweeps. We have officers that lose keys in the woods. Well, who finds them? The dogs, for the poor officers, so they can drive home. So they do a lot of work that they never get showcased for, and it's again, I think it's time that we I guess highlight the dogs in their career. I'll go over here and hang out with Fellow. Will Joe talk to you so he can tell you a little bit more about Fellow and what he does.
As mentioned, I'm Officer Joe Hoskins. This is Canine Fellow. He's been my partner for 6 years. He's a 9.5-year-old German Shepherd from Holland. I couldn't tell how many catches he's made, but he's done everything from finding armed robbery suspects, B&E suspects, auto theft suspects. One thing, fellow, whether we're searching for narcotics in houses or a suspect in a house or out in the woods or in somebody's backyard, he loves finding aerosol cans, from hairspray to Raid to carb cleaners. And one day he ended up biting into a yellow marker paint, and he bit into it, and yellow paint flew over his fur. I still have that picture, by the way. And he was yellow fellow for the day because he was engulfed in yellow paint. But he's retiring. He'll be at home with me, my wife, and my son. He's my third dog over the past 19 years. And my new dog, Milo, which is a Belgian Malinois, will be my fourth dog. And I'll handle Matt Dano.
As you can see, they're real friendly. They're like anybody.
Down.
Yes, I'm Matt Yoder. I've been a canine handler here in Charlotte for 19 years. Dano is my third dog that I've retired. I've worked 7 different dogs since I've been here. Each dog always is a little special and a little bit different than the last one. My dog had died right before I got Dano, and Dano was working with another handler. They weren't getting along for whatever reason, so the handler didn't want to work Dano anymore, and I was kind of tasked with kind of figuring out why they weren't getting along. And so I said that I would rather take that dog and work him, and we've been doing pretty well over the last 4 years. He's caught a lot of people, like Joe. We don't really keep stats like individual stats. We just chalk it up as a catch, and we send our catches to emails to our bosses, and we just go to work the next day and keep doing it. So there's stories over the last 19 years, but they just all start running together, and you just don't really remember all of them. Well, you do, but for me to pick one specific one is kind of difficult. But Dano was special to me. Just because he was a project dog, and I don't know what would have happened to him if I wouldn't have taken him. So it was a good opportunity for me to test my handling skills and my training skills to make him work. So he retired last week. He now lives in a house with me and my family. He's done very well. He's gotten a little, having some issues with my other dog, but my family's really enjoying him. He's a great animal to have. Very loving to my family, my children, and he's just a joy to have.
Yeah. And how old did you say now?
Dano is 8.5.
German Shepherd.
Yep, German Shepherd.
So, questions for either Officer Hoskins or Officer Yoder or Officer Brown?
I guess how often does the dog stay in service before you retire him? Does it depend on his usage or what he does?
Yeah, just from my experiences, as long as I've been here, usually we just kind of start evaluating a dog. We always try to keep it within on our time frame. If a dog looks like he's starting to slow down, or just things aren't really working out, we like to pick a time that's convenient for us. So we're not working the dog to the end. The next thing you know, something happens, and we're already got a canine school going for some reason, and then now we're down another dog. We don't have enough dogs really for what we're tasked to do. So we always try to keep that in our favor all time.
How long does it take to train a dog, get them up to where they're ready to go on the street?
Our canine schools are 12 weeks, and that's a basic canine school. And so you're just basically going through and teaching all the dog exactly what you want him to do, but the training is constant. It's every Tuesday. You have to stay on top of it because they get kind of slack.
Who else? Robbie.
It's always important. The more time you spend with an animal, you learn from each other. The dog he'll pick up on every little thing that you do, and he'll learn from that. He'll benefit. He'll figure out, hey, what can I do to continue to make mom or dad happy? So it's always a great idea to have them at home. No one else is taking care of them. So it just helps with the training and the continue of a career and success on the street.
How many, would you say, missions you guys do together every day?
It ranges. You may go, one night you may not have any calls, and the other nights you can't catch up. Like there's calls waiting. So as soon as you clear off one call, you're going to another call, and everyone just kind of waits on you. But I don't have the stats really to tell you. I don't know that.
Can you remember any moments when he did something amazing that saved you or prevented you getting hurt or saved somebody, or big moment that you'll always remember?
Not with this dog. He just a tracking dog, and it's not like he didn't. I know there's all kinds of really interesting stories on the internet. I don't have any with this with Dano. We tracked and caught a lot of people, and I know Joe's done the same thing. Joe, you have? I don't know. I can't think of anything.
They're just, after a while, they all blend in with each one, and
half the time you remember the story when you're, hey, remember 3 years? You're like, oh yeah, you just forget.
So don't be surprised if Matt gives everybody a call before the day's up.
No, Matt ain't giving
So I will tell you this too. Everybody looks nice and clean. We have a nasty, dirty, gross job. You go home. My feet are drenched now from running tracks this morning. So it's a job that a lot of people want to do, but so many people don't have a clue what we do. Because you're in creeks, you're in mud, it just rolls. And he said those calls are stacked and your seat's wet and you're like, oh God, it's a fun job. We all enjoy what we do, but it's a nasty job. But it's a lot of fun.
Do you find that the are some of them like trying to fight back against the dogs, or the dog's in danger, or do they basically just surrender once they see the dog?
Yeah, so I always feel that the value and benefit of having a police dog chasing or tracking somebody that we find in the woods, the biggest benefit to that is it prevents a possibility of an officer having to go in and do that same thing and go in and get somebody that could create a potential of a use of force, some sort of engagement between a suspect and an officer. And what the dog does is it kind of eliminates that. He's kind of a force multiplier that says, the majority of people that come in contact with these dogs, they don't know what this dog's getting ready to do, so it de-escalates a situation that may have been something different. So that's the biggest thing about having the dog approach a suspect or someone that's lying in wait or hiding. It defuses a situation that could be volatile if it's handled with another officer. So to me, that's a really big benefit of using police dogs to track people.
Matt, if you would, and I know you guys have to get back to work. Darryl brought up the apple pie theory about how we smell apple pie. Talk about the extensive smell when it comes. What is it? A dog smell? They smell great now.
Yeah. So I don't want to give away a trade secret, but so the dog's capabilities, their olfactory system, which is basically all of the membranes and everything that's inside of a dog's nose, they have the capability of breaking down odor. So Rob was talking about the apple pie theory. So if you have like an apple pie, you walk into a kitchen, we smell apple pie. Dogs smell sugar, cinnamon, apples, flour. They can break all that down. One of the methods of training a dog for like narcotics, we can put all the odors into one, and then we can get the dog to smell those odors, and then when we separate them, the dog hits all 5 of those odors just like it was the we call it the it's like collaging odors. Yeah, well, they're all mixed together, and we separate them, and it's just that's kind of how we imprint a dog. It's kind of the easiest way.
Somebody mentioned before that the dogs need to get recognized because they do the job that nobody else wants to do. Was an example of that when you were talking about they de-escalate the situation, or is there something else that you can elaborate on that?
Well, the dogs love doing it. It's the handlers that it's the handlers that, you know, you come out of the woods and you've got cuts all over you. You're shredded because you went through briars, and you know, you went swimming in a creek, you fell in. I tried to walk across a weeping willow log one day, and I was about 4 feet off of a creek, and it broke, and I fell completely, and I went submerged underwater. And I got up, and we had to keep tracking. I was on that track for probably about another hour. So you know, that stuff happens, and not everybody is. That's not the cleanest and most glamorous thing to do, is to be wet and miserable all night. So
We appreciate it.
yeah,
Both of you guys. They'll be around for a little bit for anybody who's interested in any breakouts or one-on-one. And I suspect we're okay. Anything that's kind of looming, it's a hard act to follow. I'll tell you what. Everybody good? All right. We appreciate the turnout.